And when many are coining the start of the podcaster wars credit to Clint Russell, Tim Pool went absolutely nuclear in perhaps the most vulgar rant I have ever heard from him before. And this wasn't out of nowhere either. I covered just a few days ago in my last video the escalation from Tim, as he was beginning to hint what he thought about Candace Owens in her coverage of the Charlie Kirk assassination. But last night he reached his breaking point. In fair warning, there is a bit of cursing.
Candace Owens is a fucking evil scumbag. She is a degenerate cunt. She is burning everything down, and she's gloating and smiling while she does it. And you know what you fucking told me? She has no security. She doesn't fucking deal with the shit we have to deal with. She's a piece of shit. She's making everyone else suffer. And all of these fucking conservatives out there that send me these fucking messages have no fucking balls to call her out. More and more people have started doing it. They send me these fucking messages. Good for you, Tim. Good for you, Tim. I wasn't the first person to do it. I'm not going to take credit for that. But don't fucking DM me like I did something for you as you cower, as you fucking cower, scared that she'll put you on her thumbnail and claim you benefited from Charlie Kirk's assassination, which he's doing to me right fucking now.
Yeah, that was the...
I'm fucking done with these people.
She has security, just not on the level of you.
Oh, yeah, the one fat guy you mentioned with no wall and no barrier in a suburban neighborhood with neighbors. She doesn't give two fucking shits. No one's out for her. She's lying about all of this. You told me you went to her house and she's got a 4-foot wall and one fat guy, and she doesn't give a shit about her security. Meanwhile, I get bullets fired at my fucking property, and I have to go live in the middle of nowhere. And I got fucking strangers coming up to my house in Maryland, breaking in. I got people showing up and beating up the residents who trying to live there. How the fuck am I even supposed to sell this property? And you know, it's all lies. It's all hypocrisy, and it is for the purpose of making money. And she does not live the way other people live. And she claims she liked Charlie, she loved Charlie, and she is burning everything down that he built because she is evil. She is evil. And I'll say it again, this conservative movement is fractured, it's fried, whatever it is. Okay? Republicans are on track to lose the midterms. They were actually trending in the other direction until Charlie Kirk was murdered.
Yeah.
And this is the point, isn't it? The most effective political assassination in history. And thanks to the likes of the vile cunt Candace Owens, she has turned Turning Point into the perpetrators of the crime that was against them. I don't get paid by any of these people. I'm not on good terms necessarily with Turning Point USA. They didn't invite me to their stupid event. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. They invited me back after I started criticizing Candace. I'm not going to your event. I'm over all of this shit. The last thing that I need to deal with is a bunch of cowards in conservative media refusing to stand up to her. Megyn Kelly, come on. I appreciate the kind words, but come on. Such fucking pathetic bullshit. You know, and I get people saying, Tim, you know, thank you so much for talking about it. I don't care. I'm not doing a favor for anybody. I'm not doing this to benefit anybody. Nobody's paying me. There's no fucking Russia. There's no fucking Israel. There's just me sticking my neck out and then risking dying for what? A bunch of cowards that don't want to stand up to protect themselves? People like fucking Candace Owens?
I couldn't believe that she put you in the thumbnail
What a fucking cunt.
of her piece today.
I'm done.
The idea that she'd
I'm
imply
done.
that you had some benefit or that you benefit somehow. Like
She benefited. I think she's a Fed, and I think she killed Charlie. No one benefited more than her.
I think it's pretty obvious where his anger is coming from, and largely from two different places. The first is the obvious. Tim thinks Candace is grifting off the back of the tragedy that is Charlie Kirk, making money hand over fist, directly being the #1 beneficiary of the fallout. And has anyone thought that Candace may be behind it?
She benefited. I think she's a Fed, and I think she killed Charlie.
But the second reason would be explaining this more recent explosion of Tim is that Tim Pool's compound or house was shot at in the last couple of days, allegedly. And allegedly being the operant word here, as when the news broke, many people didn't believe him, even larger creators like Pearl Davis. So much so that a video circulated of another content creator calling into his sheriff's office to get confirmation.
Yes, this is Deputy Hutchinson with Jefferson County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, hi.
What can I help you with, sir?
So my name is Adam. I go by Adam the Angler online. I run like a very small content creator, accounts on like X and YouTube and whatnot. Anyways, Tim Pool had put out a post on X on December 6th around 8 a.m. saying that there was a shooting that took place at his compound, I guess, his residence / business.
Okay.
I have a possible address but I'm not 100%. But I just wanted to call and just verify that he has contacted you guys, like he said, because something about this just doesn't add up to me. So, yeah, I just wanted to see if he's being honest or not, basically.
I mean, the only shooting I'm aware of is the murder we had up on the mountain last month. I'm not aware of any other shootings.
Okay. Yeah, no one like would have been hurt necessarily. He said in his post that it happened around 1 a.m. on the 6th of December, saying that someone approached his property and allegedly fired 3 shots. But then he said that... What's that?
What's his name?
Tim Pool. He's like a fairly large content creator. He covers a lot of like geopolitics and whatnot.
Okay.
And so I believe he lives within your jurisdiction, as far as I can tell. So I just
Yeah,
like...
so there are no calls associated with him. And a report was taken. So
I'm sorry, say that again? You said a report was taken?
I said I just ran his name in local. So if there had been if he had reported a shooting that we responded to in Jefferson County, it would have shown up in my system. And when I just ran his name, there was no calls associated with the shooting. Yeah, there's nothing for shootings or. And when I run his address, there's nothing coming up for it, or his name.
Huh. Well, okay. I appreciate that. We'll see if he produces something more on this alleged shooting. Because he's literally put nothing out other than saying there was a shooting and that he was in contact with police. And I've called you guys. You haven't heard of anything. And I even just talked to an officer with the Harpers Ferry PD and the incorporated city part or town part, and they said they didn't have one either. So I'm starting to lean towards this might be a hoax.
Now, why wouldn't people believe Tim Pool? Well, Tim Pool specifically is not the most trustworthy podcaster, as he has a litany of incidents in the last just 3-4 years alone. Most specifically, most people's general beef with him comes from the Chatham House rules meeting that he had, basically a secret meeting with Netanyahu that tipped off a lot of people as to what Tim Pool's kind of vision was for America. But secondly, and more specifically to this instance alone, is the idea that Tim Pool has had repeated claims of such instances happening before. And this time it didn't have much evidence. There wasn't much of a video. Now, I will say, to defend Tim Pool, I don't think he owes it to anybody to post footage of this anywhere. I do think when you do make big claims, it does require big evidence. However, this kind of shows a little bit, at least to me, the level of which the low trust society and the psyoping, everything is a psyop, has kind of permeated into being paranoia for the average person. And so much so that I think when you have somebody like that calling into a sheriff's office, to me, I find that weird. I get there's an element of investigative journalism that has to be a bit offensive, but it does seem like we are reaching all-time new lows with how far we are going with information. Now, albeit he did make previous claims before that Candace will get to in a little bit, as we'll cover that. But I think there is enough reason that you could say why people don't believe or trust Tim Pool at this current moment. And so what started as these hints and these indirect swipes is now fully opened into these personal attacks from Tim Pool into Candace. And he's not the first person, nor is he the only one doing it right now, by any means at all, as Nick Fuentes has been consistent in his line of attack against Candace from the very beginning. And this may surprise some of you, but Nick actually praised Tim's blow-up on Candace.
Nick, keep an open mind on Israeli involvement in Charlie's assassination. There are many fact and suspicious events pointing that way. Why are we stopped noticing when it comes to this? America first.
You're an idiot. Sorry. Thank you for the big super chat, but I'm sorry. If you're on the Candace Owens train, I'm not even going to pretend like I'm going to try to appease you. It's wrong. It's stupid. All of it is stupid, and I'm not going to entertain it at all. And I thought Tim Pool had an epic go-off on it tonight. It was awesome. I have never seen such a clear-cut case of an individual person being such an unnecessary detriment through sheer ignorance and irresponsibility. I've never seen it. Because you could say other people that have done things like Shapiro or Charlie Kirk or whoever, you could say they're part of a system or there's an incentive structure, they're playing by the rules, whatever. Candace is spearheading this thing, like she is creating this hysteria, and it is to the detriment of everybody. It is to the detriment of the right wing broadly. It is to the detriment of anyone that seriously talks about Jews in Israel. And it's to the detriment of rationality. it is the definition of hysteria. And I thought Tim Pool, very courageous, because I know he's getting shit for it, to say something about it. He had an epic go-off on it. Major respect for him. But yeah, no, I'm not with that at all. Thank you for the big super chat, but respectfully, no, disrespectfully, that is stupid, okay? And I don't buy into that for 2 seconds. Charlie Kirk was Israel's number. You say, why are we stop noticing? First of all, why are we stop noticing? You can't even write. You can't read or write. You're a fucking idiot. That's one. Two, nobody stopped noticing. Noticing is about paying attention to evidence. Evidence. Not scraping the bottom of the barrel talking about maroon t-shirts and looking at flight logs and finding any and every possible thing and throwing it at the wall to see what will stick. She says to Russell Brand, it's all connected. Brigitte Macron, Charlie Kirk, the war in Gaza. What a coincidence that everything you talk about is really all the same thing. You just knew it was going back to Brigitte Macron. So no, it's fucking bullshit. And, nobody wants to say that because everybody is afraid of this hysterical mob. I faced it before. I was right before. I'm right about this. I'll be vindicated. You watch. I'm done arguing about it. I've said what I have to say on it.
And I am sorry for my Candace listeners, but I completely agree on the assessment of how Candace has structured her coverage on the subject. Not that I like Tim Pool by any means, but I think it is abundantly obvious, especially with her weak excuse of why she couldn't appear in person on the TPUSA stream that's supposed to be happening on December 15th. However, albeit TPUSA did not have a strong reason as why she couldn't do it virtually either, once again arriving to nobody looking good, everybody looking bad. But Tim stayed on Candace coming into today even, and this is what I really couldn't believe. Tim was playing Nick clips, agreeing with his positions, and I never thought I would have seen the day. Now granted, it's not alignment ideologically, it's alignment against an enemy, but it's still surprising nonetheless. And this morning, he took it personally that Candace included him in the thumbnail.
Yesterday, Candace Owens had a new thumbnail for her show. The $1 billion question. Who benefited from Charlie Kirk's death? Well, the answer is her, of course, because she's got, 20 plus videos with millions of views? The real $1 billion question, I suppose, is how much money has Candace Owens made milking the assassination of Charlie Kirk with lies, hypocrisy, innuendo, and crackpot conspiracies? Well, she used this thumbnail, which depicts 3 Polaroid pictures, Kash Patel, me, and a mystery man. Now, of course, on the show, she's not really claiming, or for the most part, it's more about, I had Milo on the show, Milo Yiannopoulos on Friday, and we had this very cathartic conversation about the inner workings of politics, though I certainly understand there are many people who are upset over what he said. The things that I said, I think it was genuine, and I don't know that I believe or trust everything Milo does, but it is what it is. Now, I will say this. We have been under very serious threat for months following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We had a vehicle approaching our property slowly, fire a shot, line up with our studio, fire 2 more shots. We don't know what it is. I said it before, I said it again. I'd rather just believe it's random nonsense in the middle of nowhere for someone just shooting a gun for no reason. But it doesn't make sense, and that's a naive way to approach these things. But I try to be rational and pragmatic. So it's a difficult position. It's stressful. It is. Now, the issue with Candace Owens is when she makes a thumbnail, the $1 billion question, and she puts a mystery man in a Polaroid, the insinuation is obvious, and this is the game she's always played. Who benefited from Charlie Kirk's death? And then she shows Kash and she shows me, because she knows that people who don't pay attention, she knows that regular people scrolling through, they read headlines and they see photos, they insinuate, they connect, and they move on.
Now, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I would encourage people to listen to it as much as I always say not to really listen to Tim Pool. But I think this segment is important. And important because I think that he's getting some things right and still getting a lot of things wrong. And so let's knock them out here. At one point in the video, he calls on Dave Rubin to unite. And he mentioned somebody else there, but Dave Rubin in particular. Also, if you rope in Tim Pool, this uniting along the conservative front is exactly what I would disagree with them, particularly on the broader front of. Which is that's what the conservative movement is fracturing because of. It's fracturing because it is too much of a big tent. We have too many factions in here. We have too many differing visions of what a conservative movement should look like. And I personally believe that movement should be a Christian conservative movement, not one that is just simply economically conservative. And that meets the second point I was going to make, which is at the end of this clip from Tim Pool, he reminisces on Nick's like Christmas lighting in the background and how it's dim lights. And he's like, you know, that's the country that I want to live in. Well, in order to get that country back, Tim Pool, you're going to have to be a lot more outspoken and installing of Christian values. That's how you get Christmas back in America. That's how you get back to the original idea of what America is. It is Christian values. And Tim Pool can run from that as much as he wants to, but he will never get the country he wants as long as he runs from it. And all of this kind of connecting into what I think is the third point, which is the one that I think he's the most wrong about. And this is one that I've seen other people push out too. But we'll stick with Tim Pool on this point. Tim Pool has now made multiple mentions seeming to paint Candace Owens as the reason that the right is fracturing, as the reason that, say, in Candace's own words, that the midterms are going to be lost because of her. And I heavily disagree. For anybody who's familiar with the Grifter Wars or any familiar with even something as simple as Calendargate knows that this kind of fracturing, this schism inside the right wing has actually been happening and been present for the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, even before that. There is a strong clash, once again, with these factions. And more so, maybe the biggest point being on Christianity. And a lot of it being proxied by the fact of how insane the left became. A lot of the people that joined the recent Big Tent conservative movement were people who were Democrats and liberals and progressives a few years ago. And they only walk away from the left because of how insane the left gets with something like transgender ideology or something even worse than that. They're not really conservatives. They just know they're not with those people. And that's kind of been the issue with the Big Tent conservatism is the more that we kind of rope in and placate to these individuals who got here just yesterday, the more that these values leave the core group, they leave the base group. Hence why you are seeing such strong kind of anger and frustrations along all of these lines. But I would be remiss if I didn't also include Candace's response to it all. So starting from the top, she initially responds to the explosive clip saying that he must have some other problems going on, like financial, and that he's simply lashing out, giving the high road response, but also defending herself against the idea she is to blame for the colossal collapse in the midterms. She then responded within minutes to the same clip, repeating herself that Tim must not be well. Now, Tim also responded this morning online, not just on video, beginning his line of attack that Candace is a demon by starting with a sly post referencing Candace's usage of the third person, before ultimately posting screen grabs from a LLM, I'm assuming ChatGPT, asking about how demons refer to themselves. Not hard to see where Tim was taking that one. So culminating into more direct accusations against each other as Tim believes Candace's motives are malice and to inflict destruction upon everyone for self-aggrandizement and enrichment, while Candace pushes back arguing the inverse, that Tim is thrusting himself out into this position, along with the shooting to increase credibility, increase viewership, and help his own business financially. Candace upping the ante as I speak even, laying into the previous instance that Tim's property was shot up by highlighting that it was Tim's own brother who in fact committed the shooting and not a violent extremist. Now this circles us all the way back to the beginning of what I agree with Clint on, which is that the podcaster wars are going to begin, and they are seemingly in full effect right now. Now you can call them grifter wars if you want. That's kind of what I think of it all. And I think that's one thing I would add before I kind of get to the conclusion here, which is the idea that when Tim Pool speaks out against Candace, that people start shooting at him, I think again is just, it's hard. That is a hard thing to believe. And I think that when you make these kind of claims, evidence does need to be given. And I think Tim Pool's reasoning for not wanting to post the surveillance footage was he didn't want to give away the positions of his cameras. You can say it's fair. You can say it's bogus. You can say it's an excuse. The point being is that we are getting extremely personal, and there is very quickly the noticing of overt lack of friendships is becoming very apparent in this space. But like I had said earlier, this is what you get in a low trust society. And again, I'm going to say this. I think we are in a zero trust society. I think this is now something more akin to how people treat each other in something like The Walking Dead or like any other kind of post-apocalyptic movie or scenario. It is every man for themselves. We have reached the pinnacle of what it means to have zero ability to trust in anything, any organization, any three-letter government agency, any single one person. Now, before, when we had existed during COVID, in the 2020 era, a lot of people went to podcasters because they felt that there was a element of credibility that was missing from the mainstream media. And I'm telling you right now, if we've reached the point in which any individual who is streaming from, like myself, from some kind of mobile home in a random place in the Midwest, if even we are seen as not to be trustworthy, I think we have literally reached the bottom of the barrel of where you can go with that. And like I said in the last video, there are no winners. Everybody looks bad. Tim looks bad for reasons, Candace looks bad for reasons, but we're all losing because of it. And no, I will not ask for unity because there is none to be had. We are at a point in which one side is going to have to win. And the same thing applies for just the general left and right. The same thing applies for inside of the parties. One of the factions is going to win ultimately. They are going to wield power. What it kind of feels like right now is you agree with any one of these different pundits, you're going to quickly have individuals coming for you. You're going to make instant enemies for even saying, I agree with this singular statement that came from this one person. And how it got so personal, I really don't know, but I would have to imagine it has to do with something with the occult of personality that gets attached to anybody who makes it halfway viral, even including Nick Fuentes, Tim Pool, Candace Owens, Ian Carroll, etc., Tucker Carlson. They begin to develop their own kind of celebrity-like fans. Now, and don't take this as I'm telling you who you should listen to, who you shouldn't listen to. Listen to Candace Owens, listen to Tim Pool, listen to all of them, actually. In fact, it's a free country, do what you want. But I would plead with you to not outsource your entire critical thinking, what your overall opinions are of situations to people, especially when you've not looked into something yourself. Because I even have to admit here, I am increasingly becoming even more shocked at the level of which people will skirt around the truth to get an angle or to get a twist or to get a jab in somewhere, even if they have to entirely pervert the truth to get there. And what can I say? Your enemies despise you. Like, they weren't going to make this easy. But as far as the entire story goes, I stand with Nick Fuentes. And I will wait for when he is inevitably vindicated on this entire situation and we can continue to move on to the America First mission. And Lord, maybe we can get our country back. But that's where I'll leave it. Let me know your thoughts if I miss anything. And like always, I will see you guys in the comments. Peace.
Smash that like button.